You must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by.
It was a big deal when he was born. And everybody was all excited about it. And I remember being 8 years old, you know, how wonderful it was to be an aunt. It wouldn't thrill everybody, but it did us, and Ethel too. And of course Stuart was just a little older than us, and of course he was an uncle. That was a big deal. And my father was just ecstatic about it.
You know, he had everything going right for the last 4 years because he was the first grandchild and the first nephew and all this. But then I came along and I was a lot cuter than he was. And so I kind of took center stage in the family as far as the aunts and the uncles were, and the grandmother and all that. And of course I was my mother's favorite. Yeah, so we had a good time, even though times were, in those days, naturally times were tough. No one had a lot, but we played out every day. We played in the streets, we played ball, and he had his friends, obviously, being a little older, and I had my friends, but we played ball together in the streets, and we had many good times. And I always look back on my child, I thought it was a great time. But, you know, you don't know. What you don't have, you don't miss, you know?
When I'm with my sweet Lorraine.
My mother had to be a very, very strong woman, a very courageous woman, because she came here as a young, you know, she was a young girl. She couldn't have been more than 16 or 17 because she had to lie, as I said, to go to work for the telephone company. So she carved out quite a life for herself. You know, she left 13 grandchildren, of whom she saw every one. I certainly loved her, and my brother and I both loved her very much.
My grandmother was a very polished woman. She was very, very, always smelled very nice. She always used to kiss me on the cheek. And of course I go like this because she always had lipstick on. And she always smelled very, very nice. And we could always tell when Grammy was coming because she'd always wear bracelets with little trinkets on it, and she always shook. You could hear her coming from the next room over. Grammy always made the best meal. Of course, I was very easy to please with food, but whenever I come over Grammy's, she always had what I love, meatballs and spaghetti. She always had chicken in her sauce. It was an excellent sauce. Grammy was a good cook, and I used to love to go over there.
Unforgettable. That's what you are. Unforgettable. Though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way.
I'll never forget one story one time about my grandfather. He was cooking something on the stove, and he had said to me, "Pete, come over here. I want you to smell this, how good it smells. It's the best smell." Little did I know that he was cooking pneumonia to clean the floor. So I went over there and went, and burnt my nostrils. I could have probably died, but Grampy thought it was very, very funny. That's the kind of guy he is.
He's in the army now, a blowin' reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his
a
Uncle
kid named
Sam.
Jimmy Murphy.
Really brought him
You know,
down
don't forget, we were only 17 years old at this time. And we were on a ship going over to Japan. It took like 3 weeks to get there. Everybody on the ship was seasick. It was a mess. Everybody was throwing up. It was Well, him and I decided one night, we snuck up on deck, which you weren't supposed to be. We were going to get fresh air and stay up on deck for a while. And all of a sudden the storm started, and it got bad, and the ship was going up and down. And we couldn't get back downstairs. Those stupid, if you've ever been on a Navy ship, those stupid dogs around the doors, they call them. They kept falling into place, and anyway, we couldn't get in. So we went, this shows you how dumb we were at age 17. We went to the forward gun turret and sat in the forward gun turret. Now, this takes the biggest beating of the ship. I mean, there were waves, and I'll never forget, we were sitting there, and we had our arms, there was in this circular thing, we had our arms inside of a railing, and we were saying Hail Marys. We were both Catholic, and we were saying Hail Marys, and we were wondering what our mothers were going to think when they reported us missing, because we definitely thought we were goners. And remember, you guys are all lucky, because none of you would be here if I hadn't made it through that night. So anyway, it was unbelievable night. If you're 17 years old, you had to be to live through that. Because I know damn right well, if I was up there in the same situation now, I'd have been washed overboard in the first 5 minutes.
1928. That was a great year. We were a great crop of kids. Yourself, me, Jim Devaney, Mike DeVincent, Squashy, a host of others, but boy, we had the best of all worlds. I come up with at least 224 escapades that we were involved in from September of 1940 until June of 1946. But I had to eliminate about 200 of them because they had to be censored. Well, I always wondered, Mabel McQuestion, remember her? She was the secretary in the principal's office, and she was always calling you down. I thought you and her had a thing going, but then I find out that really it wasn't with her. You were with your buddy, John B. Matthews, in his office plotting strategy on how to make the high school run better. I'd like to have a nickel for every beer we drank down at Guffer's with the sawdust on the floor. And Guffer, as you know, did a little routine every night on the piano. And his favorite routine, which you became quite adept at doing, was the bum solo. And for those of you who might not know what a bum solo is, you just sit on the keyboard. That's a bum solo.
And we worked over the Railway Express, and there were so many people working there. We'd punch in the morning, and would sneak off before they'd catch us and put us to work. We'd walk around Boston, we'd go over the Common, hang around, go over, there was a pool room we used to go to once in a while. Then we'd come back from lunch to punch out for our lunch hour. And then we'd half hour, we'd go back and punch in for work, and then we'd run before they'd catch us. And these guys from Somerville found a way to sneak in the casino burlesque theater in Boston, in Scully Square, old Scully Square, and we'd spend the afternoons at the burlesque show. Yeah, and then we'd come back and punch out and go home. And I forget how long that lasts, but we loved that job.
You're nobody till somebody loves you.
I met Poobie on the shore of Lake Quannapowitt. There used to be a large building called the Boathouse, and they had a second floor, and every Saturday night there was a dance. So my friends and I, when we get out of the service, it was a ritual that on Saturday nights we would buy beer and go sit in the car and drink beer and then go up to the dance and try to, meet girls. And Poobie and her girlfriends, who, of course, Poobie came from Everett, and she would go to the dance, and that's where we met. I probably made some wisecrack or something because, at that age, you're not too not too polished. And your mother was a beautiful, beautiful woman, a girl. And you know, I can remember seeing her and saying, oh, wow, look at that. You know, after I met her, then it was an absolute must that I get up to the boathouse on Saturday night because I wanted to see her. I can remember my uncles, my Uncle Stuart and Everett and Harold, and say, boy, where did you get her? I mean, she's got to be the best looking thing, you know. And then they, you know, after they had met her, and of course she was just as nice as she was pretty, so they were very impressed with her in more than one way. Your grandfather on your mother's side brought up 11 kids, and he worked in a shoe factory, never made a lot of money, and his money went right into the table. Your grandmother and grandfather on your mother's side were just lovely people. She was maybe the best cook in the world. She's not anything gourmet cooking that you would talk about today, but as far as putting a roast beef dinner or a turkey dinner or stuffing and gravy and those things, I mean, you couldn't beat her as a cook, and you know, homemade desserts and things like that.
Told me he was always going to get even with me for taking all the attention away. And he told me once, he says, I'm going to marry the most beautiful girl in Massachusetts just to get even with you. And he did. But then I come home and he says, and I'm going to outdo you too. And I met a beautiful girl myself trying to keep up. But when he had 9 kids, I just said that you won that battle.
You know, more than being from a family of 9, I think really we had 2 families. We had a family of 5, the first 5, through Peter, and then Jimmy through Danny, I think, was a second family. And I think for a lot of reasons there was not only a time gap, but I really think they grew up a lot different than we did. First of all, we were 5 kids in 4 years. We were really compact. We were the first kids Papa and Poobie had. And I think Papa, for the most part, had some real strong ideas about how to bring up children. He was, disciplined ideas, very organized, very, everything had to be perfect. The regimens of getting clean, and the house being clean, and the chores, and, we had rules. We couldn't chew gum. We couldn't drink soda. We had to call, in Little League, I was so embarrassed. I was the only kid on my team, had to call my coach Mr. Man. And everyone else called him Bruce. But if my dad caught me calling him Bruce, I was history. And those, I think, strong ideas dissipated with time. I mean, I think first of all they lost energy, and when you got down to Jimmy, I think they were much more relaxed. I don't think they grew up with anywhere near the discipline. I don't think Jimmy through Danny, I don't think any of them ever got a strap. Which is the way we were disciplined. They've heard of it, so it was probably just as effective. So I really look at it as 2 families, the first 5 and the second 4. And I think they had a little bit easier than we did.
There was never a dull moment in the projects. When we talk about the hardships of the project, we're razzing you. There were no hardships growing up in the projects. It was much more fun than growing up here, I'll tell you that much. You didn't have to worry about traffic and streets. You lived in a big horseshoe that was enclosed, and it was like living with a big bunch of kids. It wasn't gangs, it was never any lack of kids to play with. So where's the hardship in that?
Had to be up, it was daylight. The sun was still shining as bright as could be, and there they were up in that room looking out, and he'd, "Get to bed!" And he'd yell up at her, "You get in that bedroom right away!" And, oh. So you guys, when the second group came along, you guys had it made by then. You're out of the project, he's the big shot at the bank, you know, and running around in the bank and stuff like that, and God almighty, God only knows what she was spending on food then. Jeez. But it was a great time, and I don't know how they did it, to be honest with you, but they did a heck of a job.
When your mother would go in the hospital and have a baby, then you'd see your father out hanging out the diapers in the courtyard. And he was the only man in the whole place that would hang out diapers. You know, all the women would talk about it.
You would think in a large family that you'd have to wait in line for the bathroom, and you know, you'd have to take turns or whatnot, but actually when I was little, the way it was, there'd be like 3 or 4 at a time in the bathroom. So they'd have like one tub full and maybe emptied out, and then 3 more kids get in or something. And then you'd get out of the tub, dry off, hand the towel to the next guy, get on Papa's lap to get your teeth brushed, lay back, you know, zit, zit, reach back, Papa would brush your teeth till the gums bleed. And then of course the other end of the toothbrush, we all know, is for getting those dry boogers out, reaching down your nose into your brain, making sure everything's clean in there. Then you're out of the bathroom, the next crew would come in. So basically you're in and out of there in a few minutes, but Papa would be in there for a couple hours.
A kiss is just a kiss, a sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still say I love you, on that you can rely. No matter what the future brings as time.
So Mom used to like to remind us of how much he used to sacrifice, you know, for us kids. And her favorite story was when he used to take us to Pioneer Village on his summer vacation. You know, make a series of day trips, and first the 8 kids would load out of the car, and he would make a trip up to the picnic ground, and then, you know, all the kids would disperse, start running around playing, and he would go back to the car, get a few more things, make another trip and another, and then he'd set up the playpen, set up the grill, start cooking. Kids would come back to eat and then run off and play again, and by the time it was, you know, ready to go home, he'd start making the 4 or 5 trips back to the car. Meanwhile, these kids were, you know, completely unaware, had been playing around for 3 or 4 hours. Later on, I mean, when we used to go to the Cape on vacation, he used to take us miniature golfing every night, pretty much. And it wasn't until years later that it occurred to me, maybe going miniature golfing with me and Danny and Billy Crouch and Dookie probably wasn't his idea of a great time. You know, but now that I think of it, when my own kids, when I go on vacation, and I spend every minute with my kids, and people look at me like I'm crazy, I'm thinking maybe that was his idea of a good time, because, you know, what could be more enjoyable? There was always that element of fear, you know, of him when you were a kid. Probably the most intimidating time was when you'd been in bed for a couple of hours, or he told you to go to bed a couple hours ago, and then he finally, you know, came upstairs with the, you know, he always made it pronounced that you'd hear his footsteps coming up, and you'd scurry back in bed and hide under the covers and pretend you'd been asleep. Well, the one time we were having a pillow fight in between rooms, I think me and Jimmy and whoever else, and he started coming up the stairs, and everybody heard the footsteps but me. So Jimmy climbed under his covers, and Dad comes around the corner, and I thought it was Jimmy, so I'm sitting there waiting for him. Whack! And I start laughing, and then I saw it was Dad, and I was like, ah, Mommy, Mommy! And then I hide it in the covers, and I never even bothered to look to notice that he was cracking up, at the whole incident, but I was never more scared.
If I were a rich man, I have a all day long I if I were a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work hard.
To be very honest, it's very hard for me to admit that I worked with Phil Gillette. The memories are very, very painful, and for that reason I prefer to remain anonymous. He never understood his role. I tried time and again to remind him of the role he had to play. After all, we were senior vice presidents of a large suburban bank. But he didn't get it. He had to be Phil. Once I was forced to go over his head and call Pauline to report the condition of his raincoat. Missing buttons, stains, out of style, torn. Initially, Pauline thought I was picking on poor Philzy. Not my husband, she said. Several days later, he came to work in a new raincoat. He came into my office and said, "I hope you're happy. There was nothing wrong with the old raincoat." Later, I found out that St. Vincent de Paul had refused the coat as a donation. An understatement would be that he was moody. Forget mornings, particularly Monday mornings. I'd walk over to his office, say good morning, and smile. He'd pause long enough to look up from the sport page. "What the Christ are you smiling at? Are you foolish? Go away. And on your way out, put on some coffee." Oh, but on Friday afternoon, he was a changed man. About 4:30, he started whistling, the damn theme from River Kwai. Then he'd come into my office, do a little two-step, wearing a grin from ear to ear.
You know, he was quoted in the paper a lot, the local paper, because of his involvement with the, various things. And he always told it as it was. I mean, he didn't pull any punches, and a lot of people respected him for that. And it was shortly after he retired that bank went down the tubes. I mean, they could not survive without my brother. It's obvious that he was holding that place together all those years.
We had quite a bit of success over the years with the Astros. For 15 years, we were probably involved in, I remember it was like 8 or 9 city series, and we won 5 or 6 city series over those years. There was really a lot of tradition involved with this team. I mean, we used that as a motivation for the kids that, the Astros, do it with class, and we always hustled, and different little things that we tried to teach them, and those customs and traditions really became an important part of the whole atmosphere that we created down there at Trafton Park. He knew all the rules. What would happen in games where there was a situation where something had to do with rules or umpiring or things like that, I would just quickly whisper to your father, what should I do now? And he would tell me, and then I would go out and be the big hero and pretend I knew everything I was talking about. As we used to go home after every game, and we would sit there for hour and a half, 2 hours, talk about we would take the book out, what happened in this inning, what happened in that inning, and that really was, for me, it was the greatest part of all the Little League experience, because we used to have more fun figuring out why we shouldn't have done this or we should have done that. And your mother used to sit in the background listening to us, getting sick of us all the time. Pauline was a big help to us in picking the nice boys that we should have on the team. Not worrying too much about whether they could field or hit, but that they were nice boys and they deserved to be on the Astros. It was something I'll always cherish and treasure, the years with the Astros. As we all know, Phil is an expert at all all subjects. Very difficult to argue with him. I used to try to, but I didn't get very far.
It was the 7th game of a championship series, and my brother will remember this for sure, when all the purple and gold balloons were up on the roof to be let loose when the Lakers won the championship. We're going to cut them, and all the purple and gold balloons were going to fall down, and the people were going to celebrate. The Celtics were definitely not favored to win. The Lakers had Chamberlain and Jerry West and Baylor, and they were going to blow the Celtics away. But old Bill Russell came through again. Red just took the cigar out of his mouth and looked up and said, "I wonder what the hell they're going to do with all those balloons. What do you think?" I just come right up out of the bed or wherever I was watching that one, and yes, one of my greatest moments in my sports fandom.
Dad was also a very patient man. For instance, in 1987, we went to a Celtics game against the Detroit Pistons, Game 5. Dad, a couple seconds left, Celtics down by 1. Dad reaches down for his hat. His typical, usual patient man. "Come on, Jerry, these bums, they lost. This game's over. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's beat the traffic." Couple seconds left. As soon as he reaches down to pick up his hat, pandemonium in the garden. Everybody's all up and on, screaming, yelling. Isaiah Thomas throws the ball in. Larry Bird steals it over to DJ. Boom, Celtics win the game. Looks up. By the time he realized even what happened, "What happened, Jimmy? How did I miss that? What's going on? Why is everybody cheering? What's going on?" Really, really patient. Patience pays off.
You got to accentuate the positive.
He's always in a hurry. Come on, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. For Christ's sakes, Phil, what do you hurry? Golf to me is you play 18 holes and you go and have a few beers. So why am I in a hurry? And that's just nervous energy, I think.
Joy up to the maximum, bring gloom down to the minimum.
Our philosophy was, you get up early at 5 a.m., you had breakfast, you went to the golf course, and you played 36 a day. It was the golf marathon. Forget the guys that wanted to have fun. We didn't care about them. They only went one trip and never came again. Oh, he was a general. He ran everything and did nothing. His job was to designate other jobs to other people.
We're going about 60 miles an hour, and we hit a patch of ice under a bridge, and we skidded, ended up against a guardrail, slid about 30 or 40 yards on the guardrail, thank God it was there, just missed the bridge. And the first thing he said was, "There goes Myrtle Beach." Second thing was, "You okay?"
Phil's swing. It's more like a slash. It really can't be. A swing would have some fluidity to it, and Phil's is more like, hey, hit the ball as hard as you can, as far as you can, and that's the end of that. But his putting is to be commended. It is exemplary. He's a grinder. Philip is the best grinder I know. Even when you think he's out of it, all of a sudden when they count up the points, he's in it, and it's a big surprise to everybody, because he wouldn't tell you he was in it until he drops the bomb.
You say either, and I say either. You say neither, and I say neither. Either, either, neither, neither. Let's call the whole thing off. You like potato, and I like patata. You like tomato, and I like tomato. Potato, patata, tomato, tomato. Oh, let's call the whole thing off.
I could while away the hours, conferring with the flowers, consulting with the rain. In my head I'd be scratching while my thoughts are busy hatching if I only had a brain.
Probably the most natural person anybody wants to meet. You could meet him for the first time and think you've known him all your life, you know. There's no pretense in his personality. You either like it or you don't. This is what I am. This is who I am. And most times he's very well liked.
The ocean's near the shore. I could think of things I never thought before. And then I'd sit and think some more. I would not be just a nuffin', my head all full of stuffin', my heart all full of pain. I would dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain.
Look sharp, feel sharp, be sharp and listen, mister, how are you fixed for blades? Do you have plenty?
How are you fixed for play?
You're better, Jack.
Please make sure you have enough, 'cause a worn-out blade makes shaving mighty tough. How are you fixed for play?
You're better, look.
Gillette Blue Blades we need.
And when we went out, it was always the same routine. The two guys in front and the two women in back. So they'd be talking, these two would be talking, and then we'd be talking in back, and all of a sudden Phil would say something. 10 minutes later, Pauline would repeat what he said. He'd look at Hank and say, "Did I just say that, or what? How's the weather where you are?" His bark is worse than his bite. Anybody's scared. How can you be friends with him? God, he's such a grouch. He's such a marshmallow.
He is.
I think the best thing about their relationship was that they allowed each other to be individuals. They recognized that they didn't have many interests in common, and they let each other do their own thing. Mom would go out with her sisters or whoever any and every night of the week till as late as she wanted to. Dad never cared, never asked, where she was going. Dad would golf on Saturdays, spend Sundays watching TV or football. Mom never minded. Occasionally she'd sit on the couch and fake like she was watching. Somehow they still found time to spend time together and have common interests together. They like to go for rides up the coast, stay at bed and breakfast, spend time with their friends, go out to dinner, and they like to laugh a lot together. So I would be remiss in talking about their relationship if I didn't mention the loving way in which Dad took care of Mom when she was sick. He could not have been a more loving, caring husband than he was during her sickness. I don't think that she loved him more at any point in her life than she did in her last year.
Did you ever know that you're my hero and everything that I'd like to be? I can fly higher than an eagle. You are the
So I was lucky. I married the goodest person that I ever knew. She was just a very good person. Hey, her kindness to everybody, absolutely, and this was a complete opposite of me. She was absolutely non-judgmental. I mean, you met her and she took you as you were. She didn't judge you for what you did or what you were or anything else. She would accept you as you are and never judged people and on their appearance or the way they acted or anything else. And she liked she liked everybody. And patience, the patience of unbelievable patience. I mean, and I can see it in some of you kids. You're certainly, a couple of you get their patience from me, which is not a good thing, and some of you get it from your mother, which is a wonderful thing. The only word to describe your mother was good. I've known a lot of good people, but nobody that was ever any gooder than her.
And that's when you appreciate having a big family. When you're an adult and you have
a place to go on holidays. You have not just holidays, but there's always activities. And then you look at other people who don't have family, but they have broken families, and then you really appreciate having a large family that stayed together.
We're giving love in a family dose. We are family. Hey, I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Sing it to me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Living life is fun, and we've just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we have for the future and our goals in sight. We know we don't get depressed. Here's what we call our golden rule. Have faith in you and the things you do. You won't go wrong. Oh no, this is our family jewel. We are family. Sing it to me. I got all my sisters with me. Sing it to me. We are family. I can hear you guys. Get up, everybody, and sing. We have faith in you and the things you do. Hey, hey, I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, y'all. Get up, everybody, and sing. Hey, hey, we are family. I got my sisters with me. I got all my sisters with me.
It's a celebration. It's a celebration. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too.
We're gonna celebrate your party with you. Come on now. Celebration. Let's all celebrate and have a good time. Celebration. We're gonna celebrate and have a good time. It's time to come together. It's up to you. What's your pleasure? Everyone around the world, come on! It's a celebration. Celebrate good times, come on! It's a celebration.
A house with love in it is rich indeed.
I'll say this about that house on Granite Street. A lot of food has been eaten by people named Gillette in that house.
The carpet may be old, the room so plain and bare, and yet it's beautiful somehow when love is living there.
I'm dreaming of a white just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. Of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your day be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the one I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear those sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your day be merry.
Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean wide before. God bless America, my home sweet home.
My grandchildren make my life worthwhile. That's what it's all about. And you know, all you know, my friends, they all, you know, my older friends have grandchildren. They all love them and dote on them, and I just have more, so I have more fun. So you know, if I had fewer, I could probably do more for them. But I'm very well rewarded by my grandchildren. What I get from them is much more than I can give them, that's for sure.
Wizard of Oz. We hear he is a wizard of whiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers
I've had one of the best lives that I could imagine. I mean, I couldn't be a heck of a lot happier. I don't see how I could be. You know, I'm sure Richard wouldn't make me any happier. And you know, I've had 9 children that have been good, and I was married to, like I say, the nicest person I ever knew, in addition to being with a beautiful person. And I've got 23 lovely grandchildren. I'm expecting 24, and I'm happy with my lot in life. And you know, if I died tomorrow, there would be certainly, I wouldn't be sad about it. I've had a good time. I wish I could putt a little better, but other than that, what the hell?
What a wonderful world.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Papa. Happy birthday to you.
I hope I can reach that esteemed figure of 70, because you know I'm a lot younger than you, at least 2 months.
Feliz cumpleaños, Papacito.
Hi, Bunky, it's me. Thanks for the memories.
Happy birthday, Papa.
Happy birthday, Philip. I hope you have 70 more.
Bon anniversaire, Papa.
Getting old ain't for sissies.
Because I was the middle child, I sucked my thumb just like this until I was 13 years old. Thank you very much, Dad and Mom, for having this over me. I still sometimes wake up with my thumb in my mouth like this. Because of you, Dad, Papa, whatever you want to call you. Yeah, 70, I'll never live to 70. I'll still have my thumb in my mouth when I'm 70.
Happy birthday, Phil, and many, many more years of good health and happiness, and enjoy those grandchildren. Keep them coming, guys.
And for once, when you come back from Royal Palm after playing 90 rounds of golf, I hope you can still break 80.
Happy birthday, Papa.
Happy 70th, Phil. We love you very much. Love you lots.
Love you lots, Phil, and congratulations. And when we were younger, we probably never thought we'd get this far, but thank God we're here.
And
we're glad to be here with you in Santa Barbara.
Papa, on your birthday, I just want to say that a year after I lost my father, I gained another one. I want you to know how much I love you.
Happy birthday. I love you, man.
Happy birthday, Papa.
Hey, who's that? Shut that damn door.
What the hell did you play that for? I mean, how stupid can you be? You can't see? Don't you remember? He just played the jack. Now you know he must have the you know.
Will you come on? For Christ's sake, what are you, putting for the State House?
2, 3, say it. I guess she doesn't.
Happy birthday, Phil!
Happy 70th birthday, Papa. We love you.
Happy birthday, Squash Head.
You're not going to let any of Polly's friends out in Santa Barbara
He's going to cut all this.
find out that she grew up in the project.